Your mind is constantly processing information, pulling in signals from the world around you, simultaneously reflecting on the past and anticipating the future. This process never stops, never slows, never feels truly under control, leaving them caught in a cycle of overthinking that feels endless, exhausting, and unavoidable. Overthinking is not simply thinking too much. It's the brain's response to internal and external stimuli. This creates mental loops, repetitive thoughts, and persistent self-questioning. The mind latches onto details, possibilities, and hypothetical outcomes that may never occur. As these loops persist, the nervous system reacts, releasing stress hormones that make thoughts feel urgent, pressing, and important, even when harmless or irrelevant. In the modern world, overthinking is common. Our brains expect constant stimulation and rapid responses. When stimulation is inconsistent or overwhelming, the cognitive system struggles to prioritize and filter, leaving attention scattered, energy depleted, and clarity out of reach. Mental overload feels threatening, as though inability to resolve thoughts signals failure, inadequacy, or loss of control. The brain processes overthinking by activating neural pathways in the prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, reasoning, and judgment, alongside the limbic system for emotions and stress. Under high stimulus, these systems amplify focus on potential risks, mistakes, or unknown outcomes, creating a feedback loop where thinking itself becomes the source of mental fatigue. Without intervention, constant thought activity is mistaken for productivity, but it's counterproductive. Mental overload occurs when cognitive load exceeds working memory capacity. Too many inputs demand attention. The brain's natural filtering mechanisms become overwhelmed, causing mental static, scattered focus, and heightened stress. Exacerbated by modern technology, social pressures, and environments that continuously present new data, leaving little space for reflection, recovery, or internal processing. Overthinking is often triggered by internal and external factors. Understanding these is essential for control. Internally, thoughts of self-doubt, perfectionism, and imagined scenarios prime the mind for loops. Externally, notifications, emails, social media, and events constantly interrupt the brain's natural rhythm, fragmenting focus and forcing the cognitive system to switch tasks repeatedly, adding mental load. This persistent stimulation can rewire the brain to expect high-frequency input, making calm moments uncomfortable. When the brain experiences prolonged overthinking, effects are felt not only mentally but physically. The autonomic nervous system responds to perceived stress by increasing heart rate, tightening muscles, and elevating cortisol. These sustained responses lead to fatigue, irritability, sleep disruption, and difficulty concentrating. The brain is signaling it has reached its processing capacity, and recovery requires deliberate intervention. Social and environmental factors also amplify mental overload. Humans process social information with high resolution. When interactions are prolonged or superficial, cognitive system expends resources without meaningful input, leaving the individual drained, overstimulated, and prone to internal loops. Moments of solitude, silence, and self-directed activity are essential maintenance for the brain, providing space to restore balance, organize thoughts, and rebuild internal equilibrium. Your brain handles overthinking best when allowed to prioritize internally, focus on meaningful tasks. Structured cognitive activity engages the prefrontal cortex, strengthening pathways for clarity and judgment. Paired with calm, distraction-free environments, the mind sifts through noise, identifies patterns, transforming chaotic mental chatter into purposeful insight, creative solutions, and emotional regulation. One of the most effective ways to manage mental overload is through deliberate control of attention. Overthinking thrives when attention is scattered, divided, or reactive. Choose where to focus. Techniques like time blocking, structured reflection, and intentional solitude allow the brain to operate on a manageable load. Physical states also impact the brain's capacity to handle overthinking. Adequate sleep, nutrition, hydration, and movement are fundamental. When these basic needs are neglected, working memory and executive function suffer, making internal loops more persistent. When conditions are optimized, overthinking loses its intensity and mental overload becomes manageable. Meditation, journaling, and reflective exercises serve as practical tools for redirecting overthinking. They provide a structured outlet for thoughts, allowing the brain to externalize ideas and evaluate scenarios. These activities strengthen metacognition, creating a buffer against repetitive loops and cognitive fatigue. Digital minimalism and external noise reduction are also critical. Modern technology creates artificial urgency. By limiting notifications, social media, and multitasking, the brain reclaims ability to prioritize. In this controlled environment, even mundane tasks become opportunities for calm and cognitive regeneration. The brain's natural architecture favors periods of structured thought interspersed with rest. Overthinking occurs when the cycle of focus and rest is disrupted, leaving circuits overworked. By reinstating rhythm through intentional breaks, physical activity, and micromeditations, mental energy is preserved. Another strategy is reframing the perception of thoughts themselves. Overthinking is fueled by emotional weight. By observing thoughts without judgment, assigning proportional significance, and evaluating outcomes realistically, the mind can prevent escalation into worrying loops, unnecessary anxiety, and imagined catastrophes. Internal dialogue, self-compassion, and measured curiosity also aid in reducing mental overload. Harsh judgment, self-criticism, and emotional reactivity amplify cognitive loops. Curiosity encourages exploration without fixation, and self-compassion allows errors to exist without rumination. Environmental design supports mental clarity by creating spaces that minimize unnecessary sensory input. Crowded, noisy, or chaotic surroundings require additional cognitive resources to filter. By controlling light, sound, layout, and timing, the nervous system operates efficiently. Cognitive pacing, or deliberate scheduling of mental load, allows the brain to handle complex tasks, alternating periods of deep focus with restorative pauses, assigning priority to essential mental tasks. The brain develops resilience, adaptability, and capacity for complex thought, and overthinking diminishes. Understanding the difference between productive reflection and maladaptive overthinking is critical. Overthinking occurs when processes loop endlessly without resolution, consuming energy without producing outcomes. By identifying this threshold, interrupting loops, and redirecting attention to constructive thought, the nervous system maintains balance, clarity, and efficiency, turning potential overload into strategic insight. The brain also benefits from routines that support cognitive rhythm. Predictable patterns reduce decision-making load. When daily habits, work sequences, and environmental cues are structured, overthinking loses its foothold. Social dynamics further influence mental overload. Prolonged engagement with superficial interactions taxes resources. When time is deliberately allocated for selective, meaningful interaction, the brain maintains efficiency. Emotional regulation, mindfulness, and awareness of internal states serve as guardrails against overthinking. When emotions are observed without immediate reaction, the cognitive system can pause and evaluate purposefully, reducing the intensity of mental loops, preventing escalation into anxiety, and maintaining capacity for deliberate thought. Finally, the brain handles overthinking best when empowered to operate with autonomy, clarity, and internal guidance. By creating environments, routines, and mental practices that prioritize internal regulation and selective attention, overthinking is transformed into manageable, productive mental activity, and mental overload becomes a signal for recalibration.